I was working at immigration in Jamaica. A British man handed me his passport and said I shouldn't have to wait in this queue. Britain and Jamaica have a special relationship. Don't you have a Commonwealth lane? I explained that everyone goes through the same immigration process. He got quite irritated and said, but we're not foreigners like the Americans or Europeans. We're Commonwealth. That should mean something. I told him it means he doesn't need a visa, but he still needs to be processed. He said, this is ridiculous. In the old days, British citizens had priority. Your government should respect that history. His wife added, we helped build this country. The least you could do is show some gratitude. They spent 20 minutes arguing before finally going through normal channels. I work at a hotel in India. A British couple checked in and immediately started complaining about the heat. The man said, can't you do something about the temperature outside? It's unbearable. I offered to adjust their air conditioning. He said, no, I mean the actual weather. In Britain, we have reasonable temperatures. You should have better climate control here. His wife said during the Raj, the British managed to cope with administrative buildings and hill stations. Why haven't you maintained those standards? I explained that India has been independent for over 70 years and has developed its own infrastructure. She said, yes, but you've let things slide. The British knew how to run things properly in hot climates. They genuinely believed India should still operate on colonial principles. I was a tour guide in Kenya. A British tourist asked me why the Kenyan flag was flying higher than the Union Jack at a government building. I told him there was no Union Jack, only the Kenyan flag, because Kenya is independent. He looked confused and said, but aren't you still part of the Commonwealth? You should have both flags. I explained that Commonwealth membership doesn't mean flying the British flag. He said, well, that seems ungrateful. Britain invested a lot in Kenya. The least you could do is acknowledge that. His wife said in Australia and New Zealand, they still have the Union Jack on their flags. That's proper respect. Kenya should do the same. They couldn't grasp that Kenya chose independence and its own national symbols. I work at a restaurant in Malaysia. A British man asked to speak to the manager. When I came over, he said, we've been waiting 15 minutes for our food. In Britain, this would be unacceptable. Don't you have service standards here? I explained that all food is cooked fresh and 15 minutes is normal. He said, but we're British tourists. We bring money to your economy. We should be prioritised. His wife agreed, saying, when Britain was involved in Malaysia, things ran on time. You've lost that discipline. I told them their food would be ready shortly. He said, this is why Commonwealth countries struggle. You've forgotten the efficiency the British taught you. They left a review saying Malaysia had declined since independence and needed to learn from British hospitality standards. I was working at a museum in Singapore. A British woman asked why there was an entire section about Singapore's independence from Britain. She said, isn't that a bit negative? You're focusing on the bad parts. I explained that independence is a significant part of Singapore's history. She said, yes, but Britain brought railways, education, rule of law. Where's the section thanking Britain? I showed her the historical exhibits that covered the colonial period. She said, this makes it look like colonialism was bad. That's not fair. We helped develop this place. Her husband said Singapore wouldn't be what it is today without Britain. You should be more balanced and grateful. They wanted the museum to present colonialism as purely beneficial. I work at a car rental in Barbados. A British man complained about the price. He said, these rates are outrageous. Don't you offer a discount for British citizens? I told him we don't. He said, but Britain and Barbados have historical ties. We should get preferential treatment. I explained that Barbados is an independent nation and sets its own prices. He got quite upset and said, this is what happens when you cut ties with Britain. You forget who helped you. His wife said, when Barbados was properly managed, British people were respected. Now you're just gouging us like any other tourists. They reluctantly paid full price, but told everyone at the hotel that Barbados had become ungrateful and money-hungry since independence. I was a park ranger in Zimbabwe. A British tourist asked me why white visitors had to pay the same park fees as everyone else. He said, British people built these parks during colonial times. Shouldn't we get free entry? I explained that everyone pays the same fee regardless of nationality. He said, but without British conservation efforts, these animals would be extinct. We deserve recognition for that. His wife said, it's political correctness gone mad. In the old days, there was proper appreciation for what Britain did. I told them Zimbabwe's conservation program is run by Zimbabweans now and is highly successful. He said, yes, but it's built on British foundations. You're benefiting from our legacy and not even acknowledging it. They paid, but complained the entire safari. I work at a government office in South Africa. A British man came in asking about business permits. When I explained the requirements, he said, surely there's an expedited process for British investors. We have a shared history. I told him everyone follows the same process. He got annoyed and said, British investment built South Africa's infrastructure. We should be welcomed with open arms. I explained that South Africa welcomes all legitimate investment equally. He said, this is reverse discrimination. In Britain, we'd roll out the red carpet for international investors. You're making it difficult because of colonial guilt. His wife said South Africa was better organised under British influence. Now everything's bureaucratic. They left, saying post-colonial Africa didn't understand good business relationships. I was working at a beach resort in Tanzania. A British couple asked if there was a private beach for British guests. I told them all beaches are open to everyone. The man said, but we've paid for a premium package. Surely that means separation from the locals. I explained that Tanzanian beaches are public and everyone has access. He looked disappointed and said, in the old days, there were exclusive areas for European guests. That's proper resort management. His wife said, we're not trying to be difficult, but we've paid good money. We don't want to share the beach with hawkers and local families. I told them that's how Tanzanian beaches work. They complained daily about the lack of exclusivity and suggested Tanzania should learn from British seaside resorts. I work at an airport in Ghana. A British man was upset about a flight delay. He came to my desk and demanded to be put on the next available flight. I told him all passengers would be accommodated in order. He said, I'm a British citizen. Can't you prioritise me? I have important business. I explained we don't prioritise by nationality. He got quite angry and said, Britain is one of Ghana's biggest trade partners. You should show some appreciation. His wife said, this would never happen at Heathrow. They have proper standards. You lot could learn a thing or two. I processed his rebooking like everyone else's. He told his companion that Ghana had forgotten the organisational skills Britain taught them during colonial time. I was a guide at a heritage site in Pakistan. A British tourist asked why there weren't more references to British architecture in the city. I showed him several colonial-era buildings. He said, but you make it sound like occupation. It was development. I explained that Pakistanis have their own perspective on colonial history. He said, yes, but without British railways and government buildings, Pakistan would be nowhere. Where's the gratitude? His wife said. Modern Pakistan is built on British foundations. You should be proud of that connection, not critical. I told them Pakistan celebrates its own independence and achievements. He said, typical post-colonial attitude. You've rewritten history to make Britain the villain. They left saying Pakistani guides were biased and needed better historical training. I work at a hotel in Nigeria. A British guest complained about the electrical outlets. He said, why don't you use British 3-pin plugs? They're the safest design. I explained that Nigeria uses its own electrical standards. He said, but the British system is superior. You should have switched to it. His wife said, when Nigeria was properly run, everything was standardized to British system. Now it's all different and confusing. I offered him an adapter. He said, we shouldn't need adapters. Commonwealth countries should use British standards for everything. Plugs, driving, measurements. That's what made the empire efficient. They spent their entire stay complaining that Nigeria had abandoned sensible British systems and made life difficult for British visitors. I was working at a bank in Sri Lanka. A British man wanted to open an account. When I explained the requirements, he said, I'm from Britain. Surely that counts for something. I told him everyone follows the same process. He said, but British financial systems are the gold standard. You should be excited to have British clients. I explained that Sri Lanka has its own robust banking sector. He looked skeptical and said, I find that hard to believe. Without British oversight, how do you maintain standards? His wife said Sri Lanka had better banking when Britain was involved. Now it's all complicated. They left saying Sri Lankan banks were unnecessarily difficult and didn't appreciate the value of British customers. If you've enjoyed this collection of post-colonial delusion, give it a like and subscribe for more. Cheers.